In this house Jane Austen lived her last days and died 18th of July, 1817. Declining health of Jane Austen, elasticity of her spirits, her resignation and humility, her death. Early in the year 1816, some family troubles disturbed the usually tranquil course of Jane Austen's life, and it is probable that the inward malady which was to prove ultimately fatal was already felt by her. For some distant friends whom she visited in the spring of that year thought that her health was somewhat impaired, and observed that she went about her old haunts and recalled old recollections connected with them in a particular manner, as if she did not expect ever to see them again. It is not surprising that under these circumstances some of her letters were of a graver tone than had been customary with her, and expressed resignation rather than cheerfulness. In reference to these troubles in a letter to her brother Charles, after mentioning that she had been laid up with an attack of bilious fever, she says, "I live upstairs for the present, and am coddled. I am the only one of the party who has been so silly, but a weak body must excuse weak nerves." And again to another correspondent, "But I am getting too near complaint. It has been the appointment of God, however secondary causes may have operated." But the elasticity of her spirits soon recovered their tone. It was in the latter half of that year that she addressed the two following lively letters to a nephew, one while he was at Winchester School, the other soon after he left it. Chawton, July the 9th, 1816. My dear E., many thanks. A thank for every line, as many to Mr. W. Digweed for coming. We have been wanting very much to hear of your mother, and are happy to find she continues to mend. But her illness must have been a very serious one indeed. When she is really recovered, she ought to try a change of air and come over to us. Tell your father that I am very much obliged to him for his share of your letter, and most sincerely join in the hope of her being eventually much the better for her present discipline. She has the comfort, moreover, of being confined in such weather as gives one little temptation to be out. It is really too bad, and has been too bad for a long time, much worse than any one can bear, and I begin to think that it will never be fine again. This is a finesse of mine, for I have often observed that if one writes about the weather, it is generally completely changed before the letter is read. I wish it may prove so now, and that when Mr. W. Digweed reaches Steventon tomorrow, he may find you have a long series of hot, dry weather. We are a small party at present, only Grandmamma, Mary Jane, and myself. Yalden's coach cleared off the rest yesterday. I am glad you recollected to mention your being come home. My heart began to sink within me when I had got so far through your letter without its being mentioned. I was dreadfully afraid that you might be detained at Winchester by severe illness, confined to your bed perhaps, and quite unable to hold a pen, and only dating from Steventon in order, with a mistaken sort of tenderness, to deceive me. But now I have no doubt of your being at home. I am sure you would not say it so seriously unless it actually were so. We saw a countless number of post-chaises full of boys pass by yesterday morning, full of future heroes, legislators, fools, and villains. You have never thanked me for my last letter, which went by the cheese. I cannot bear not to be thanked. You will not pay us a visit yet, of course. We must not think of it. Your mother must get well first, and you must go to Oxford and not be elected. After that, a little change of scene may be good for you, and your physicians, I hope, will order you to the sea or to a house by the side of a very considerable pond. Oh, it rains again. It beats against the window. Mary Jane and I have been wet through once already today. We set off in the donkey carriage for Farringdon, as I wanted to see the improvement Mr. Walls is making, but we were obliged to turn back before we got there, but not soon enough to avoid a pelter all the way home. We met Mr. Walls. I talked of its being bad weather for the hay, and he returned me the comfort of its being much worse for the wheat. We hear that Mrs. S. does not quit Tangier. Why and why for? Do you know that our Browning is gone? You must prepare for a William when you come, a good-looking lad, civil and quiet, and seemingly likely to do. Goodbye. I'm sure Mr. W.D. will be astonished at my writing so much, for the paper is so thin that he will be able to count the lines if not to read them. Yours affectionately, Jane Austen.